the proper way to address God in prayer is with first a clear and calm and quiet mind, picturing what it is you want, claiming what it is you want without embarrassment, without apology. Just, this is what I want. Ask for it once. And then every other time that you pray about it, thank him for it. Even if it's not here, thank him for it as if it is already here. But picture what you want, stake your claim on it, mentally own it, ask once, and then just say, thank you so much for bringing this or something better. Hello, prosperity seekers, and welcome to another episode of the Prosperity Approach. I'm your host, Allyson Chavez. And hey, before we dive in today, if you have not subscribed or followed my YouTube channel, smash that button right now so that you can be up to date on all of the upcoming podcasts. And come join us in the Prosperity Experience Facebook group. I'd love to continue this conversation with you in there. I'm in there all the time. I'm doing weekly videos in there and catching up with people in their posts all the time. So join us there. Welcome back to our series about spirituality and discovering and creating prosperity in your experience and your relationship with the God of your understanding. Today, I really want to talk specifically about how to get God to answer your prayers. And I know that sounds a little bit manipulative now that I think of it. I'm like, how can I get what I want, right? How to get God to give you what you want. Not really what this is, but does God answer our prayers? And is there a practical, prosperous approach that we can take in our prayers with God that actually make them more effective? I don't know about you, but I have had years and years and years and hundreds and thousands of prayers that never got past my ceiling. And I've had other times where my heart is in prayer and it seems to be answered instantly. And I just feel such a deep connection with God. And what's the difference? Have I done anything differently to have those two different experiences? And can we know how to pray in a way that we can feel that we're heard and also get God to answer? And the answer to those questions is absolutely yes. Prayer is a really practical way to communicate with God. Actually, it's a really fast and easy way to connect with God, but there are very specific things that's required on our end in order to be able to receive those answers that we want from God. So here's my experience with God. I've said many, many prayers that are like Hail Mary, last resort, desperation, save us from the cliff, save everything. I can't handle this. Jesus, take the wheel kind of prayers before. And, went over the cliff, right? And I don't think I'm the only one that's had this experience. And I think this is why a lot of people have issue with prayer, because they're like, I prayed so much and so desperately for so long, and the disaster happened anyway. So God wasn't there for me. And then I feel abandoned and so forth and so on. But here's the thing. God follows his rules. He is a God of order. He's a God of harmony. And he's also got to keep his rules, those universal laws. And so many times we use God and prayer as a last resort, which is really interesting. I had a mentor once who was like, after we try everything and try to figure it out and do it on our own, then we go pray. Like, we connect with the most powerful being in the universe as a last resort? Why don't we do that first? And I was like, you bring up a really good point there. Why do we save that for last? And it's, because we don't understand the true nature of God. And go back to the previous episode about understanding God's characteristics, and that will help clear things up for you there and will make you want to go to God first in prayer. But what we do a lot of the time is have a ton of mind chatter going on, and so much is cluttering up your mind that it is these like Hail Mary, last resort, throwing up your hands, tossing spaghetti at the wall, trying to get something to stick, kind of an energy and an approach that we take to God in prayer. So we're picturing exactly what we don't want. We're getting really, really upset and worked up by it. So we're putting a lot of attention, a lot of energy to it, a lot of emotion to it. And there's so much momentum behind it that it just like follows its most logical conclusion. Because essentially what we've done is we've tied God's hands and we've made it very difficult for any answers to get through, because it requires us to have a calm mind, a quieted mind. And too often we're just completely stressed out to the max, and we have anything but a calm, clear, quiet mind to take to God in prayer. Another thing that keeps us from receiving answers is that we pray, but we don't really believe that God will hear our prayer or that he'll answer our prayers. I think that most people take more issue with the fact that God doesn't answer their prayers than being afraid that God doesn't hear their prayers. Because everybody that I've talked to that believes in God has no bones whatsoever about God is the most powerful being in the multiverse. God can work miracles. God does work miracles every day. What trips them up is, but will he work miracles for me? Yes, God answers prayers every day, and God loves all of his children, and he's involved in everybody's life, but is he involved in mine? And will he make a difference in mine? And does he care about me? And I know this from speaking to so many people, and also because that was my personal experience with God as well. So we go to God in this prayer, but we don't actually believe he's going to help us, you know? So let me make this a real world scenario. All right. So I'm a parent. I'm a mom. We have 4 children. When my youngest was, she did it most of her childhood. You know, she comes up to me and she was like, so Mom, I have this question, but I know you're going to tell me no. And I was just like, then why are you going to ask me? If you already know that the answer is no, then why are you wasting my time? And why are you wasting your time? And why have you already made the decision for me? You know, and it was just kind of irritating, quite honestly. I'm just like, ask for what you want. And then let's see what the answer is going to be. So I don't know whether she was, as a 7-year-old trying to use reverse psychology on me, but it didn't really work because it just made me more aligned with telling her no, actually, when she's like, well, I really want this, but I know you won't give it to me. But how often do we do that with God, right? Or how often do we take this begging, sniveling, pleading, bargaining kind of approach to prayer? I mean, I'm raising my hand right now. I used to do that all the time. Please, if you'll just do this, then I promise I'll help my fellow man. I remember praying for my first car, and I'm like, if you'll help me get my first car, then I will go to the temple and I'll do work for the dead every week, and I'll take people for rides if they need to go places, and I'll just use it in service for others. Like, I was just trying to bargain my way and justify why I wanted a car and why God should help me get a car, instead of being like, well, this is what I want. It's going to bless my life, and I'll bet it's going to bless other people's lives too. And will you help me? Like, the proper way to address God in prayer is with first a clear and calm and quiet mind, picturing what it is you want, claiming what it is you want without embarrassment, without apology. We'll go into that deeper in another episode. But just like, don't be embarrassed by it. Just, this is what I want. Ask for it once. And then every other time that you pray about it, thank him for it. Even if it's not here, thank him for it as if it is already here. But picture what you want, stake your claim on it, mentally own it, ask once, and then just say, thank you so much for bringing this or something better. Now, here's the issue that I used to take with or something better. I didn't actually believe something better would come, right? So it's like, no, it's this, because there's nothing better than this. But what I have come to realize with my own experience and in my own journey is that there is a something better always beyond what it is that we're picturing or what we're asking. And God loves to tell us yes. Anytime that we ask the universe a question, or anytime that we are using universal laws, or we are expressing our desires, the answer is always yes. But the yes is not an answer to our words, it's an answer to our vibration. That's a total sidebar. But the answer is is always yes to what we're picturing, what we're feeling, what we are following in our mind as the logical conclusion to whatever it is. It's why we ended up in bankruptcy several years ago, because I was praying, please save us from bankruptcy. Please save us from bankruptcy. We're going off the financial cliff. And I felt like the old Wile E. Coyote cartoons, when he's being pushed off the cliff and he's like digging in his heels trying to backpedal, but there's like this huge, cement block or metal box or whatever that's just pushing him off the cliff. Like I pictured that all the time. And when I prayed, it was that kind of a prayer. It was a save me from this. But because of the way universal laws work, I was in complete violation of those laws, asking him to save me from that. And I was tying his hands. Plus, I couldn't hear the answer because my mind was screaming all the time, save me, save me, save me. And he's like, I'm trying to give you the answer that'll save you, but you're screaming so loud that you can't hear it. And we tend to do that quite a bit when we're praying. And then we don't believe that we'll actually get what we're asking for, or we've got to bargain or beg or snivel or plead or, whatever that is. So there is a specific approach that is more effective to address God in prayer and to come to God in prayer. I call that the prosperity approach. We've been taught the scarcity approach, the begging, the bargaining, the sniveling, the pleading, the disbelief. We've been taught that. We've been conditioned that. That's the scarcity approach. You're going to continue to get those same kind of results and have that same experience of feeling cut off from God and you're still on your own. And why doesn't he help me? And why is it just a little bit? And why is this so hard? You're going to get those same results if you continue in the scarcity approach to prayer and getting answers from God that way. The prosperity approach is so much easier to do. There's so much more relief that's involved. There isn't the high drama when you use the prosperity approach. Now, I want to give you an example. I'm going to move back and address what I said, that it's this or something better, but most of us don't believe that something better will actually come. We're having a hard enough time believing that what we want will come, much less something better. And I had a real world experience with this, which actually is what ratcheted up and skyrocketed my trust in God faster and more effectively than anything else possibly could. But it was a heart-wrenching experience at the time. So this was back in 2018. And we were in financial freefall. We were, gearing up for Armageddon, going on with our money. I was praying all the time, save us, save us, save us. I know I've got gold here with what I'm learning and the prosperity approach, and help me be successful in my business and all of that. And this was at those olden days when we could gather together as in large groups. So I was looking for places that I could speak. And I love to speak. Oh my gosh, like speaking in public and doing conferences is one of my most favorite things to do. I just love connecting person to person in an audience. And I came across a conference that seemed like a perfect fit for me. And I talked to the producers, and they were like, yes, you are a perfect fit. And I was made all of these promises. They were like, we were going to have 500 people there. We want you to sell a high ticket item, like $2,000 program. You've got an hour to speak. It's a 3-day conference. This is exactly like they need what you are selling. Now, it was a $7,000 buy-in to speak on this stage for 60 minutes. And I could sell like the last 10 minutes or whatever. Plus, it was across the country. And it was going to require both my husband and me to take a week off of work, all travel expenses. We had to pay all of our travel expenses, all of our food, like all of that. Plus, we weren't getting paid for that week that we were gone. So this was about a $10,000 investment. And we both felt like, yes, we've got to do this based on how many people they're bringing in and like all of these numbers that they're telling us. This is it. And I was like, this is my ticket. This is our ticket to save us. This is going to get all of our debt taken care of. And we were 150 grand in debt at this point. I was like, all I need to do is sell 10% of the audience, and we've got this whole debt wiped out. And I was like, this is the answer. This is it. Now, at that time, I was reading a book called The Science of Getting Rich. And he talks about when you're going for something, you ask God for help and you ask God for it. And then you just, every time you talk to God about it, there on out, you just claim it and own it and thank him for it. And you do your part. And if you do your part and it falls apart in an unexplained way, it's because God is overriding your desire because there's something better coming for you. And so don't let yourself get disappointed in any of that, and just keep going on in confidence and just know that very soon something's going to come. And he had an example with one of his students was putting together a big business proposal, and he did his part, and he was, in that right frame of mind and all of that. He came and he gave the presentation, and he said it fell apart in a perfectly unexplainable way. But rather than get disappointed, he was like, oh, God overruled what I wanted. He's got something better. And so he just went along his way, and he just kept working for what he wanted. And within 3 weeks, he had this other business deal that was so much better than the first one. He never would have taken the first one anyway. All right. So I was reading that and I was like, but I know this is it. I know this is it. I feel it so, I just felt it in my bones. So we get there. And day one of the 500 people we were promised would be in that audience, there were 19 people in the audience on day one. Day two, we had 12. And they canceled day 3. I came to call it the conference that wasn't. Now, I still got up and I spoke to those 12 people when it was my turn to speak. And guess how many sales I made? 0. No sales whatsoever. And I was devastated. I was like, now we're even farther behind. Now we've added 10 grand more in debt. And not only did we not break even, we're so far behind. And I will admit, I went to that place where I was sobbing in the fetal position in our hotel room and just unconsolable. And then I would dry my tears and we would go out on the town, and then I'd come home and I'd cry again. And we got home that weekend and I did the same thing, and I was crying and crying. And then that whole paragraph in that book came back to me. Did you do your part? Yeah, I did my part. I practiced, I invested, I made sure my mindset was right, and my vibration was right, and I was in gratitude and all of those things. And did it fall apart in a perfectly unexplained way? And I'm like, yeah. Well, then all this means is that God has something better for you. So you get to let go of disappointment, let go of the devastation, dry your tears, and move forward. You did your part. God will do his. So I was still in my faith field at this point because nothing had changed except we were worse off than if we hadn't done it, except we weren't because this was God teaching me in real time, in real life, was something that was extremely important to me. So I was like, oh, that's right. Okay. You know what? Something better's coming. It has to be. Something better is coming. Either this didn't work out, so something else has to come and work out because I'm so committed to this. I'm committed to this path. And about 6 hours later, I got a text from my aunt. And she said, we've decided to sell Grandma's vacation home, and it ended up being the family vacation home. And we're about ready to close the deal, and you get part of it. Now, let me tell you why. Grandma had been dead for 10 years. Just want you to know that. And as part of her will, her estate got split up between her 5 children. But if one of her children preceded her in death, then it would go to it would go to her grandchildren, that child's children. And my mom had died before my grandma died. My mom died when I was 11. And so the 5 of us, because my brother had died by then as well, the 5 of us were now the beneficiary of my mom's share of selling the house. We had no idea that was even happening at all. At all. The vacation home was never going to be sold, ever. But she sends me a text. She's like, the lawyer needs some of your information and blah, blah, blah. And with everything that we wanted, that part of the inheritance was taken care of. That took care of our needs. Now, was it $150,000 to wipe out all of our debt? No, it wasn't. But that experience taught me, well, first of all, certainty, that I can trust God, that I can rely on God, that when I do my part, God always does his part. And guess what? God always does his part, even when we don't do our part. And we don't have to do it perfectly either. Remember, I dove into devastation. I dove into woe is me. I was sobbing. I was upset. I was crying. I was blaming. I was feeling like a victim. Like I went there for a couple days. Actually, it wasn't like, 12 minutes and then Allyson was, back on top again. It took the weekend for me to get there. So you don't have to do it perfectly, but I was no longer in such blatant violation of the laws that the laws can now work with me and I could work with the laws. And right there, boom, was what I've been after for so long, was certainty. That things are either going to work out the way you want or better. Because this was certainly better. I'll tell you what, just having that money handed to me was better. That was really fun. That was really fantastic. And it was easier. It was like my Gideon moment. And I'm not going to go into the Gideon story in the Bible. If you're interested, read the Bible, read the Gideon story. It was magnificent. There was no question in my mind whatsoever that this was God's hand all over it. There was no way it would have happened without God. And that was when I really got that certainty that everything always works out for me. And it's either going to work this way or 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 this. It can be an infinite number of ways it's going to work out. I don't care how it works out. All I care is that it does and it will, and that God is at the helm. Now, did it save us from bankruptcy? No, it didn't. But here's the thing with that. There were lessons for me to learn through that bankruptcy that made that bankruptcy necessary for me. Do I think that you have to hit rock bottom and file bankruptcy in order to learn the lessons you're meant to learn? No, but for me, I did. And I wouldn't trade that experience and what I learned from that for anything. Now, do I want to go through another bankruptcy? No. And I don't plan to ever again. I learned my lesson really, really, really well. But through that bankruptcy is how I learned how money actually works on a vibrational and spiritual level. I learned how to change my beliefs through that experience. I mean, gold mine. It's how I transform my life. It's how I teach people to transform their lives and changing their subconscious beliefs and really shifting their whole perspective about money and how it actually works relative to them. I mean, it was just the richest experience that I have ever had where business is concerned. But I had to do my part and only my part, and then trust that God would always do his part and everything always works out for you. This is how God answers prayers. He's going to answer them in ways that are going to give you the most delight, the most surprise, the most joy, and the greatest growth. And sometimes God's answer to our prayers is a no, because there's something that is very important for us that will lead to greater joy that's in that no. It's generally leading to a much greater yes. In fact, I have a quote on my wall. Patricia Holland said this: "I have discovered that the Lord's no's are preludes to an even greater yes." Oh, I'm going to say it again. I have discovered that the Lord's no's are preludes to an even greater yes. He knows what's going to bring us the most delight. He knows what's going to bring us the most joy, that's going to give us the greatest growth, to have the biggest impact in our own lives, and for us to be able to share that with others. So you just keep trusting. You just keep doing your part and only your part, and allowing God to be part of your process. It is delightful. It's surprising. It's meaningful. It's bearable when you allow God to be part of your process right from the beginning, and you believe, you bring that belief, that element of faith that this is what I want, and yet you can see farther than I can, and you can see clearer than I can, and you're going to bring something that's going to dazzle me, and I can't even imagine what that is at this point. So I'll leave the form to you, and I'll leave the how and the when to you, and I'll just keep going in this direction, because that's where I feel pulled to go. It's how you receive answers from God. It's how you trust those answers. It's how you receive those answers. You quiet your mind. You picture what you want. You ask for it unapologetically. You own it mentally, and then you go for it. and you allow God to guide your footsteps, even if you don't know how. He'll give you the hows, and He'll give you that direction. And as you continue to let Him lead you and let Him guide you, He'll take you off the beaten path, because there's a secret waterfall that He knows will just dazzle and delight you. He'll take you off the beaten path because He knows there's a gorgeous rock formation that will just remind you of something else and will just add to your experience. Let Him detour you. They're not actually detours. Let the path be meandering. It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be. It's the dance. It's the experience of it all. And life gets to be dazzling. It gets to be simple. You get to have success without struggle if that's what you choose. But there are specific things that we must do on our part to ensure that we love life as we go, that we do have that success without struggle, and we know what our part is, and we do only our part, and we let God do His part. Harness the power of your mind. Leverage the power of the universe. No more heavy lifting. No more questioning, no more thinking you're all on your own to figure it out. You never are. And your prayers will become the most amazing conversations you'll ever have in your life. And they can be while you're on your knees. They can be while you're in your car. They can be while you're driving. They can be while you're dancing, while you're sitting, while you're lying down, while you're cooking dinner. Some of the greatest conversations I've ever had with God have been while I've been driving. So don't put a limit on where you can pray or how you can pray or how long you can pray. But He's there and He's listening, and He just needs you to just calm down for just a minute so that He can get through. Untie His hands, give Him something more to work with, because He is ready to dazzle and delight you to the point that you'll be able to receive it. I hope that this has been helpful for you. Make sure that you join me next time. Next episode, we're going to be talking about how to tell when God is speaking to you. What's a nudge? I talk about nudges all the time. Claim what you want. Follow the nudges. Ask what the next step is and follow the nudges. What is a nudge, and how can you tell whether it's your own thought or whether it's God's inspiration or revelation speaking directly to you? So be sure to join us next time on The Prosperity Approach. Bye-bye.